Hell Let Loose Vietnam is one of the weirdest games I've ever played. On one hand, this game is full of bugs, persistent server problems, bad performance, and just an overall base level of jank that I haven't experienced in a multiplayer game since the days of the early 2010s. But on the other hand, this game is just straight up fun. Crouching in a dense jungle, hearing gunfire ringing all around you, and the people in your squad screaming their heads off as you're blindly giving out returning fire is an experience that really can only be uniquely found in Hell Let Loose. Is it different enough from the first game? I don't know. And I think a lot of fans might treat that as a negative for this game, but I think the developers made a point to stick to the roots of the original Hell Let Loose while adding and improving only minor things. So today, I want to talk about Hell Let Loose Vietnam, what I liked, what things that I think need to be improved, and why I think Hell Let Loose Vietnam is one of the most frustratingly enjoyable experiences I've had in a very long time. If you're new here, my name is Ojus and this is Ojus XP, and if you want to stay up to date with Hell Let Loose alongside other first-person shooters and more single-player reviews coming up along the way, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Now, back to the video. Now look, to get the premise out of the way, admittedly, I think Hell Let Loose Vietnam is a pretty niche game in terms of the FPS genre. Hell Let Loose Vietnam puts you right in the smack dab of the 60s in the Vietnam War. The game focuses on 50v50 combat, with the primary game mode being something akin to like Breakthrough in Battlefield. And that's essentially what the entire game revolves around. Where Hell Let Loose sets itself apart is in the actual gameplay. Movement is slow and practically non-existent. You can run, jump, and swim, but that's really it. You can barely vault. Most of the time you're crouched, moving slowly through the jungle. It's way more slow and methodical than almost any other game on the market. Gunfights are quick, 2 bullets and you're dead. Headshots are instant kills, and enemies have no way to identify them. You have to use your eyes and look really closely through the dense jungle, or use your ears to try and listen for them. Where I think this game sets itself apart is that this game focuses heavily on teamwork. Like Battlefield, you have classes in the game, but unlike Battlefield, each squad can only have a certain amount of each class. There are medics, gunmen, riflemen, machine gunners, grenadiers. There's different types of classes matched to different tasks, and you essentially have to excel at these tasks if you're going to be good at the game. A medic needs to revive. You're not just picking medic for the gun because everyone gets the same guns. Same goes with rifleman and grenadier and support. All of those classes feature something that is unique to them, and it requires constant communication between your squad mates to keep that in order and to stay aligned with what the next objective is. On top of that, each squad leader has essentially access to all the other squad leaders in terms of voice chat, and so it's imperative that your squad leader is essentially communicating with the other squad leaders around and communicating when to attack, when to defend, which squads are supposed to be attacking, which are defending the points. It's an incredibly important aspect of the game, and while I think it's a little hit or miss, obviously you can't expect every single person to have a mic all the time. When you do have a squad that has full mics, everyone's communicating, everyone's having a good time, it is an incredibly rewarding experience. You still get those chaotic moments with bullets flying everywhere, returning blind fire, explosions going off, but it's controlled chaos. There isn't the destruction systems like in Battlefield. People aren't moving at light speed, sliding around the map. This is all about the gunfights and the vehicles. Now look, on paper, I think this can easily be dismissed as a Battlefield clone or like a B-team Battlefield, but I think there's a lot different here from a game like Battlefield, even though it still focuses on large-scale battles. And to be honest, I really find myself hooked on this specific premise. Games can take up to an hour and a half. Communication with your squad mates is fun. The people that play this game and the community surrounding it is incredibly helpful to new players. There's an incredibly steep learning curve to this game, but it's definitely made easier with the community. Beyond that though, I think there absolutely is a market for a game like this. In a world with constant stimulus and running and gunning like in Call of Duty and Battlefield 6, playing a military shooter that slows things down a bit, focuses on a real historical war, and forces you to think a little more strategically has a market, and it was proven in the original Hell Let Loose that was set in World War II. And look, I want nothing more to then sit here and tell you this game is worth it, it delivers on every single promise it makes, and you should absolutely go out and buy it. But unfortunately, right now, I cannot say that. This game has a lot of issues. If you go look into the Steam reviews right now, you'll see that this game is marked as mixed. And if you go scrolling through the reviews, I think you'll find a lot of reasons as to why it is like that. Primarily, without a doubt, there are some major bugs and glitches present within the game right now. I've gotten constant server disconnects, audio glitches, weapon glitches, and the performance isn't that great either. This is another Unreal Engine 5 game, and you can definitely see that. I honestly commend the developers for the dense foliage and jungles of Vietnam. They truly look as dense as they do in real life, but the actual texture work, and more importantly, the interactability between you in the game and the map just isn't really there for me. Foliage doesn't really move around as you walk past it. There isn't really any sort of destruction in the game apart from man-made structures that you can make in the game like barricades, tunnels, and garrisons, and of course tanks and helicopters. Vaulting also right now barely works. Things that seem like you should easily be able to vault past just won't let you. And even things like riverbanks that should be easy climbs can sometimes be incredibly difficult in a fight against the game's systems. Look, I understand this game and what it's trying to be, and I would never ever compare this game made by an incredibly small team to a game like Battlefield 6 that was made by hundreds and hundreds of developers. But at the end of the day, this is an Unreal Engine 5 game. And for a game that I think prides itself on realism of its surroundings and immersion within the game itself, I think this game does feel distinctly last gen in a lot of ways. For the performance that I'm getting on my PC, which is no slouch by the way, I would expect this game to look a lot better than it does. Better weapon models with higher texture qualities and more details, dirt effects on weapons, light destruction elements, it's all just missing from the game. But the problems extend far past those technical issues, and they also go into the base design of the game as well. If you look online and you look through the Steam reviews and you look at reviews surrounding this game, you will see a lot of people that say that Hell Let Loose Vietnam does not do enough to separate itself from its contemporary and its original game that came out, Hell Let Loose, which was set in World War II. And to be honest, on paper, I get it. Hell Let Loose Vietnam adds a tunnel system for the Vietnam Army, yet it really only functions as a fast travel system between garrisons. Is it useful? Absolutely, when people take the time to build them. But contrast that with the helicopters of the US Army that are way faster, more abundant, and offer benefits besides just getting to a place super fast. You can see the difference pretty clearly. But then you might say, oh, the US was actually way more technologically advanced than Vietnam at the time, and so it makes sense that the US would have more technologically advanced things in the game. But to that, I remind you, who won the war? It was the Vietnamese, and they use tactics that are just not present in the game. Now look, to be honest with you, I did not play the first game very much. I only very briefly played it. So this complaint that I'm seeing online isn't really valid for myself. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm enjoying the premise for what it is, and I understand that it is incredibly close to the original Hell Let Loose. And for the fans out there that played a shit ton of Hell Let Loose and put in hundreds and hundreds of hours, I can see why they think that the Vietnam rendition doesn't do enough different mechanically to call itself a sequel. But in my opinion, at least, I've enjoyed the premise. I've enjoyed the mechanics because I really haven't experienced them from the original game. But again, I can see that for the people that have played a lot of the original Hell Let Loose, that this game almost feels like it refuses to innovate in a lot of ways. But beyond this, I think the maps are also a little samey. I understand that this game is set in Vietnam, and Vietnam only has so many regions and differences, but I struggle to tell the difference between maps. It doesn't matter if they all look the same, but the problem is they all feel the same. There's no major differences on how you approach any one map, and that causes each round to feel the same as the last. This also extends to the weapons. There's almost no weapon variety even between the factions, and so everyone is rocking the same base weapon as everyone else. Again, I get it. That's how war works. Everyone gets a standard issue, but this is a game. Even if realism is the #1 priority, adding weapon variety would be in service of the fun, without detracting from the actual important parts of the realism. Basically, what I'm getting at here is that this game feels like an early access title masquerading as a 1.0 release. This game is incredibly content light. There's only 6 maps at launch. There's only 2 standard issue weapons that are unlocked at the base. And it just feels like there's way more content that should have been added for this to be called a 1.0 release. This game screams early access, especially with the bugs and glitches that have been going on with a lot of players. Now, to be fair to the developers of Hell Let Loose Vietnam, in 2026 alone, they are planning on adding 9 new weapons, 2 new maps, new helicopters, uniforms, and bringing bug fixes. And we only have about 4 months left in the year. So to bring all of that in these 4 months, assuming everything still stays on track, is an incredibly good thing. But at the same time, imagine if they had delayed this game by a month or 2. Fixed a lot of the bugs and glitches that are plaguing the game now, adding those 2 new maps and some more weapons. I don't think anyone would be complaining that this game feels like it's an early access title or content light had they done this. Look, I know I've said, frankly, not that many good things about this game so far. I said this game has had a lot of issues, fundamental ones, issues with content and bugs and glitches. But if you remember at the very beginning of this video, I said that Hell Let Loose Vietnam is one of the weirdest games I've ever played, because despite all of these glaring issues and lack of content, I can't help but kind of love this game. I'm not really into milsim games. I've tried getting into games like Arma, Squad, and even the original Hell Let Loose, but for one reason or another, they've never really clicked with me. But for some reason, Hell Let Loose Vietnam has. It's not perfect at all, but it is fun. There isn't a single game out there right now that I can play that gives me the feeling that Hell Let Loose Vietnam does. Battlefield comes close, but lacks the actual communication with your squad that used to be so prevalent back in the day. For better or for worse, in many ways, Hell Let Loose Vietnam feels like I've been transported into a multiplayer game from the early 2010s. A persistent server browser, communication with your teammates, laughing, joking, talking, strategizing about the game you're playing at that very moment, building communities with self-hosted servers in a modern multiplayer game. A lot of this is just gone. But again, I said for better or for worse. The jankiness, bugs, glitches, and kinda shitty graphics reminds me a lot of those games from the early 2010s as well, where jank was expected and almost damn near required. At the end of the day, this game is incredibly fun. I have issues with it. I get frustrated by it. I'm not sure it's worth the $40 asking price right now, but in the future, when they add new maps, new weapons, potentially new game modes even, I think this game has an incredible amount of potential. I'm not sure if it's going to be a mainstream success like a Battlefield or an Arc Raiders, but what I can say is that I think there's going to be a dedicated community and passionate community surrounding this game, building each other up, creating persistent servers and communities, and just having fun that way. And to be honest, I want part of that. Either way, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below your thoughts on Hell Let Loose Vietnam. Are you considering giving this game a try? Is this a game just not for you? I know this is admittedly a niche game, but it's just something that I've had on my radar for a while. It seemed interesting, so I thought I would check it out and play it. And to be honest, despite all the bugs and glitches, I am so glad I did. Again, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing. My name is OJusXP. I'm out.